Dylan Cruz had seen strange things in his 5 years as a deep space salvage engineer, but nothing like this. His oxygen meter blinked red as he drifted through the debris field near KL-9, a shattered ring system that circled a dead star. His suit was patched in 3 places. His helmet visor fogged with each breath, and his stomach growled from skipping 2 meals to stretch his rations. He was chasing a signal of faint energy ping from what his scanner called a derelict freighter, but the readings kept shifting like the ship was breathing. He kicked off a chunk of frozen metal and floated toward the source. The debris around him shimmered oddly, not reflecting light but bending it like heat over desert sand. Then he saw it, a tear in space itself, a vertical slit of silver hovering between 2 asteroids. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Dylan knew better than to trust anomalies. Space was full of traps. Gravity wells disguised as calm zones, radiation pockets that looked like clear paths. But something about this one tugged at him. Maybe it was the way the static in his comms cleared when he got close. Maybe it was just hunger making him reckless. He reached out. The moment his glove touched the silver surface, the world twisted. His stomach lurched. Colors inverted. Sound vanished. Then he was falling. He crashed through a curtain of woven light, landing hard on polished obsidian floor. Air rushed into his lungs, thick with the scent of incense and something sharp like ozone. He coughed, ripped off his helmet, and blinked against the sudden brightness. He was in a vast chamber. Walls curved upward into a dome painted with constellations that moved in real time. Hundreds of figures stood frozen in place. Tall, slender beings with pointed ears and skin like moonlight. They wore flowing robes of deep blue and silver, their eyes wide with shock. Silence pressed down like weight. At the center of the room stood a woman. She was taller than the others. Her hair, the color of winter frost, pulled into an intricate braid that coiled down her back. Her eyes glowed faintly silver and locked onto Dylan with pure terror. She wore a gown that shimmered like liquid starlight and held a dagger with a blade made of black crystal. The moment she saw him, her hand trembled. The dagger clattered to the floor. A hush broke into whispers. She took a step back, her breath catching. Then she spoke one word in a language Dylan had never heard but somehow understood in his bones. Impossible before he could stand or explain or even say sorry for barging in. A deep voice boomed from the far end of the hall. "The ritual is complete." An old man stepped forward, his face lined with age but his posture unbent. He wore robes heavier than the others and a circlet of twisted silver around his brow. His eyes burned with certainty as he pointed at Dylan. "The veil has chosen. The stranger is the groom." Murmurs erupted, some angry, some awed. Dylan scrambled to his feet, holding up his hands. "Wait, no. You've got it wrong. I was just out there, salvaging in this weird hole, and I fell through. I didn't mean to interrupt anything. Seriously, I'm sorry, but no one listened." The old man, the high priest, strode forward and placed a hand on Dylan's shoulder. His touch was warm but firm. "The universe does not make mistakes, child. You have crossed the threshold at the hour of binding. That makes you the consort of Lyra Vane." Lyra. The woman with the silver eyes flinched at her name. She stared at Dylan like he was a ghost or a bomb about to explode. Her fingers twitched toward the fallen dagger, but she didn't pick it up. Instead, she turned and fled. Her bare feet made no sound on the stone as she disappeared through an archway veiled in hanging vines. Dylan tried to follow, but 2 guards blocked his path. They didn't draw weapons. They just stood there, tall and silent like statues. Their eyes held no malice, only duty. "You will be prepared," the priest said gently. "The ceremony of union begins at the next solar alignment. 3 hours." Dylan was led away not by force but by inevitability. They took him to a chamber lined with soft fabrics and glowing crystals. Warm water filled a basin. Clean clothes lay folded on a bench. A servant with eyes like polished onyx offered him food, dried fruit and spiced bread. Dylan ate slowly, his mind racing. This had to be a dream, or a hallucination from oxygen deprivation. But the food tasted real. The water was cool. His suit sat in the corner, still patched and grimy, a reminder of the life he left behind just minutes ago. As he changed into the soft tunic they provided, he caught his reflection in a polished metal panel. Same messy brown hair, same tired eyes, same scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood fall. Nothing about him screamed Groom material, especially not for an alien princess who looked like she wanted to vanish into thin air. He paced the room, tried the door. Locked. Not with a key, but with some kind of energy field that hummed when he touched it. No windows, no comms. Just silence and the distant echo of chimes. Then he heard it. A low rumble, deep enough to vibrate the floor. It came from below. Not mechanical. Alive. It sounded like thunder trapped underground, or a growl. He pressed his ear to the floor. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by a scraping noise like stone on stone, then a breath hot and heavy enough to stir the air through the vents. Something was down there, something big. His heart pounded. He thought of Lyra running away, of her fear, of the way she whispered that word impossible like it was a curse. What had he walked into? 3 hours passed too fast. Servants returned and guided him back to the great hall. This time it was even more crowded. Beings from other species stood in the balconies watching with curiosity or suspicion. The air hummed with tension. Lyra was back. She stood at the center again, but now she wore a crown of woven silver leaves and her gown glowed brighter. She avoided looking at Dylan. Her hands were clasped tight in front of her like she was holding herself together. The priest began to chant, words in that strange tongue that made the air shimmer. Lights swirled above them, forming symbols Dylan couldn't read but somehow felt in his chest. Warmth spread through him, not from heat but from something deeper, like a memory he never had. As the chant reached its peak, the floor beneath them lit up with a pattern of stars. Dylan felt a pull in his chest like a thread connecting him to Lyra. She finally looked at him. Her silver eyes were full of fear, but also something else. Resignation. Sorrow. The priest raised his arms. By the will of the void, by the breath of the ancients, by the silence between stars, you are bound. Let no hand part you. Let no law undo this. What the cosmos has joined, let none tear asunder. A wave of energy passed through the room. Dylan gasped. For a second he saw flashes not his own. A forest under twin moons, a dragon coiled around a mountain, a city burning in silence. Then it was gone. The crowd erupted in cheers. Music began soft and haunting. But Lyra didn't move. She just stared at Dylan like he was the end of everything she knew. Before he could speak, she turned and walked away again. This time slower, heavier, as if carrying the weight of the stars on her shoulders. Dylan stood alone in the center of the celebration. No one approached him. They smiled and bowed from a distance but kept their space. He was the groom, honored, feared, misunderstood. He looked down at his hands. They felt the same. But something had changed. The air around him felt different, charged. Alive and deep below the ship, the rumbling came again, louder this time, almost like a question. He didn't know what came next. But one thing was clear. He wasn't going home. Not anytime soon. And somewhere in the shadows, Lyra Vane whispered to the dark. He shouldn't be here. None of this should be real. But it was. And the dragon beneath the hull had already begun to stir. Dylan Cruz spent the next 2 days in a room that felt more like a gilded cage than a home. Soft fabrics lined the walls. Warm light glowed from crystal orbs, and food appeared 3 times a day without anyone knocking. He had everything except freedom. And answers. He asked the silent servants who brought his meals, but they only bowed and left. He tried the door again, but the energy field still hummed when he touched it. He even shouted once just to hear his own voice echo back at him. Nothing changed. On the 3rd morning, the door opened without warning. 2 guards stood outside, not the tall, silent ones from before, but smaller ones with silver bands around their arms. They gestured for him to follow. No words, just a nod. Dylan went. He had nothing to lose. They led him through winding corridors that curved like tree roots. The ship itself felt alive. Walls pulsed faintly with light, floors warmed underfoot. And sometimes he heard distant music like wind through glass chimes. It was beautiful but unsettling. Like walking through a dream that might turn nightmare at any moment. They stopped at a heavy door made of black wood veined with gold. One guard pressed a hand to it. The door slid open with a sigh. Inside was darkness and heat. A low growl rolled through the air, thick and heavy like distant thunder. Dylan froze. His skin prickled. Every instinct screamed to run. But the guard stepped aside and waited. He took a breath and walked in. The room was huge. Bigger than any cargo bay he had ever seen. The ceiling vanished into shadow. The floor sloped downward into a pit lined with strange metal that glowed faintly blue, and in the center, coiled on a bed of shattered stone and ancient chains, was a dragon. It was not like the dragons from Earth stories. No wings of leather, no scales like armor. This creature shimmered like oil on water, its hide shifting between colors that didn't exist in human language. Its eyes were closed, but its chest rose and fell with slow, powerful breaths. Each exhale sent a ripple of heat through the chamber. Dylan stood still, heart hammering. Then the dragon opened its eyes. They were not red or yellow. They were deep black with silver stars swirling inside like tiny galaxies. It looked at Dylan not with hunger but with something like recognition. The guards bowed low and backed out. The door closed behind them. Silence. Dylan swallowed. He should have been terrified, but he wasn't. Not really. It felt more like standing in front of something ancient and wise, not a monster. "Hey," he said softly. The dragon lifted its head. Chains rattled. They were thick, heavy things wrapped around its legs and tail made of a metal that looked like frozen starlight. Neutronium, the strongest substance in the known universe. And yet the dragon moved like it was barely holding back. A voice filled Dylan's mind. Not words exactly, more like feelings shaped into meaning. "You smell of earth and iron." And defiance. Dylan blinked. He could hear it clearly as if someone whispered in his ear, but no one was there. "Am Dylan?" He thought back, not sure if it would work. The dragon tilted its head. Its star-filled eyes narrowed slightly. "You are not supposed to be here, little spark." "I know," Dylan said. "I fell through a hole in space. Ended up in some weird wedding. Now I'm the groom, whatever that means." The dragon made a sound deep in its chest, almost like a chuckle. The universe plays strange games, but it does not play without reason. Before Dylan could ask what that meant, a soft voice came from the doorway. "Orcs." Lyra stood there. She wore a simple tunic now, no crown, no glowing gown. Her silver hair was loose around her shoulders and her eyes were tired. She looked younger, like the weight of ceremony had been lifted, if only for a moment. She walked down the steps toward the dragon. Oryx lowered its head as she approached. She placed a hand on its snout and closed her eyes. "He should not be here," she said softly. "But he is," Oryx replied in Dylan's mind, "and the chains feel lighter since he arrived." Lyra looked at Dylan, really looked at him for the first time, not with fear but with something like curiosity. "You survived the binding," she said. "Most humans would have broken under the weight of it. The ritual is not just words. It ties souls. And your kind was never meant to carry that." "I didn't ask for this," Dylan said. "I just wanted to fix my ship." She almost smiled. Almost. "No one ever asks for fate. It finds you anyway." She turned back to Oryx. "This is the one the prophecy spoke of." "Prophecy?" Dylan asked. Oryx answered before she could. "The one who walks through closed doors. The one who speaks to dragons. The one who will break the old world so a new one can grow." "That sounds like a lot," Dylan said. "It is," Oryx said. "But you already began." Lyra walked closer to Dylan. She stopped just out of arm's reach. Her eyes searched his face. "Why did you come here?" Dylan Cruzy didn't choose to come. "I fell, but you stayed. When you could have run. When they offered you a way out, you chose to face me. To face him. They never offered me a way out. They did. In silence. In empty rooms. In open doors you did not see. Most would have hidden. You walked toward the growl." Dylan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Oryx shifted. The chains groaned. One link near its front leg cracked with a sound like breaking ice. Lyra stiffened. Her hand flew to a small pendant at her throat. "They are testing the wards," she whispered. "The council. Who the ones who fear what you represent. And what is that hope? Chaos. Change. Things they have spent 10,000 years trying to control." Dylan looked at the dragon again. Oryx watched him with those star-filled eyes. "Why do they keep you chained?" "Because I am oath-bound," she said. "My bloodline made a pact long ago. We guard Oryx. And Oryx guards the silence between stars. If he is freed without the right hand to guide him, the void will wake. And you think I am that handy, do not know. But Oryx does." Oryx lowered its head until its eyes were level with Dylan. "Touch me, little spark." Dylan hesitated. Then he reached out. His fingers brushed the dragon's snout. Warmth flooded him. Not heat, something deeper. Like coming home after a long journey. Images flashed in his mind. A mountain under twin suns. A city built inside a comet. A war fought with songs instead of weapons. And through it all a thread of silver connecting him to Lyra and to Oryx. He pulled his hand back, gasping. What was that? Memory. Oryx said. The truth of what was. And what could be. Lyra watched him, her expression unreadable. "They will come for you soon," she said. "The council. They will offer you gifts. Pretty things wrapped in poison. They will smile and call you brother. But they want you gone. And me with you. Why? Because we are the crack in their perfect world. And cracks spread. What do I do? Trust no one. Eat nothing they give you. And when the time comes, follow Orcs. Before Dylan could ask what time she meant, a chime echoed through the chamber. Soft but urgent, she turned away. I should not have come. They will know. Wait, Dylan said. Why are you helping me? She paused at the door, looked back. Her silver eyes held something he couldn't name. Because you looked at me like I was a person. Not a prize. Not a prophecy. Just Lyra. Then she was gone. Dylan stood alone with the dragon. The air felt heavier now, charged with something new. Oryx settled back onto its stone bed, but its eyes stayed open. Rest, little spark. The storm is coming, and you will need your strength. Dylan sat on the edge of the pit. He didn't feel tired, but he felt seen. For the first time since he fell through that silver door, he wasn't just a mistake. He was part of something. He didn't understand it yet, but he would. And deep below the ship, the chains around Oryx began to glow faintly red. Not from heat, from something older, something waking up. Far away on the bridge of the Whispering Thorn, a council envoy arrived. His robes were white. His smile was sharp. In his hands, he carried a box lined with velvet. Inside rested a goblet made of moon. Glass filled with wine that shimmered like liquid. Stars. A gift for the groom, it read. But the wine smelled faintly of ash, and in his quarters Dylan dreamed of dragons flying through asteroid fields, and a woman with silver eyes walking beside him, not running anymore. The game had begun, and Dylan Cruz had no idea how to play. But Oryx did, and that was enough. The days blurred together in the belly of the Whispering Thorn. Dylan learned to read the ship's moods by the color of the walls and the pitch of the hum in the floor. Blue meant calm. Violet meant warning. Gold meant someone important was near. He kept to his room when the walls turned violet. He ate only the food Lyra's silent servant left. Plain breadfruit and water from a stone pitcher that never emptied. He refused every gift that came from the upper decks. The moon-glass goblet sat untouched on a shelf, its wine long since evaporated into a fine silver dust. He spent his evenings in the dragon's chamber. Oryx never spoke unless spoken to, but its presence was a comfort. Sometimes Dylan would sit on the edge of the pit and tell stories of Earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of cities built on steel bones, of dogs that barked at nothing and loved everyone. Oryx listened with eyes half closed, its massive chest rising and falling like a slow tide. Once it even purred, a sound like distant stars colliding. Then came the solar flare. It hit without warning. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Alarms wailed in a language Dylan couldn't understand, but the fear in them was clear. The guards who usually stood outside his door vanished. The energy field dropped. For the first time since the ceremony, Dylan was free to move. He didn't hesitate. He ran toward the dragon's chamber. When he arrived, the door was open. Lyra stood at the edge of the pit, her hands pressed to her temples. Her silver hair floated slightly as if charged with static. Oryx was on its feet, chained, straining. Its eyes blazed with starlight. The flare disrupted the neural dampeners, she said without turning. The council built them into the ship's core. They keep Oryx docile, but solar fire burns through lies. Oryx let out a roar, not loud but deep enough to shake the bones of the ship. The chains glowed white-hot. One snapped with a crack like lightning. Dylan stepped forward. What do we do survive, she said. They will use this. They will say Oryx is dangerous, that I have lost control, that you are the cause, Amino. But truth does not matter when power is at stake. As if on cue, the far wall shimmered. 3 figures stepped through. Not guards, diplomats. They wore robes of pale green, the color of new leaves. Their faces were calm, their smiles perfect, but their eyes watched Oryx like hunters watching wounded prey. Elder Vain One said, bowing slightly. We felt the disturbance. We came to assist. Lyra straightened. Her voice turned cold. You came to watch me fail. Never, the second said. We only wish to ensure the safety of our honored guest, the human. They turned to Dylan. Their smiles widened. Groom Cruz, they said in unison. You must be frightened. Come. We have prepared a safe room. Far from this. Dylan looked at Lyra. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. Thank you, he said, but I'm fine here. The third diplomat stepped forward. He held out a small box. Inside rested 3 white berries glistening with dew. A calming gift, he said. From the gardens of Alaris. They ease the mind after trauma. Dylan knew better. He had seen the way the dew shimmered too brightly, smelled the faint bitterness beneath the sweetness. No thanks. The diplomat's smile did not waver, but his eyes hardened. It is tradition. To accept a gift from the council, Orcs growled. The sound rolled through the chamber like thunder. The diplomats flinched. One dropped the box. The berries hit the floor and sizzled like acid. A mistake, the first said quickly. We meant no harm. Lyra moved then. Fast. She placed herself between Dylan and the diplomats. Her hand rested on the hilt of a knife hidden in her sleeve. Leave, she said. Now. For a moment, no one moved. Then the diplomats bowed again and backed away. The walls shimmered. They were gone. Dylan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. They won't stop, he said. No, Lyra said. They will try again. Harder. Why do they hate humans so much? Because you are unpredictable. You build cities in a century that take us millennia. You laugh in the face of death. You love without permission. You break rules like twigs. To them you are chaos made flesh, and that scares them more than war, more than plague. Chaos cannot be controlled, and they have spent 10,000 years building a universe that obeys. Dylan looked at Oryx. The dragon had settled, but its eyes stayed sharp, watching the walls. What happens when we reach the homeworld? They will hold the final binding, a public ceremony. If we go through with it, we become symbols of unity. If we refuse, they will erase us quietly and tell the galaxy we died in an accident. So we run. There is nowhere to run on a ship this size. And Orcs cannot fly yet, not with the core dampeners active. Then we fight. Lyra turned to him, really looked at him. Her silver eyes searched his face. You do not understand what you are saying. To fight the elven hegemony is to stand against the oldest power in the galaxy. They have fleets that blot out stars, minds that can unravel time. You are one man with no weapons, no army, no training. Dylan met her gaze. Maybe. But I have you, and him. Oryx lifted its head. Its voice filled Dylan's mind and earth. What they do not know it yet, but your people are coming. I felt it in the flare. A signal, faint but stubborn, like a heartbeat in the void. Dylan's breath caught. He had sent a distress ping right after the ceremony. Encrypted, buried in cosmic noise. He never thought it would get through. They're coming, not just ships. Hope. Your kind does not abandon its own. Even across light years, Lyra stared at him. Then at Oryx. Understanding dawned in her eyes. That is why they fear you, she whispered. Not because you are strong, but because you are never alone. Dylan stepped closer. So what do we do? Give them a story they cannot control, a moment they cannot script? At the ceremony, we do not kneel. We do not obey. We show them that the universe chose us not as puppets, but as partners. And if they kill us, then we die standing. But I think they will not. Because Oryx is awake, and your people are coming. And the galaxy is tired of silence. Dylan nodded. Okay, let's give them a show. That night, Lyra brought him a small device shaped like a leaf. Press this, she said. It will mask your biosignature for 3 minutes, enough to slip past sensors. What about you? I have my own ways. And Oryx, he has been waiting 10,000 years for this moment. Before she left, she paused at the door. Dylan, you thank you. For not running, he smiled. I was never good at running. She left. The walls glowed violet. The next morning, servants came with new clothes. Deep red fabric woven with threads of starlight. Ceremonial. Heavy. Dylan put them on. They felt like armor. As he dressed, he found a small note tucked in the sleeve, written in simple human script. Trust the dragon. Trust yourself. Do not let them speak for you. He tucked the note into his pocket, over his heart. The ship hummed with tension. The journey to the homeworld was almost over. Outside the viewports, nebulae swirled like painted skies. Inside the whispering thorn, everyone held their breath. Dylan walked to the great hall alone. No guards, no guides. Just him in red robes and a heart full of quiet fire. Lyra waited at the center. She wore black this time. No crown, no jewels. Just a simple circlet of iron. The color of defiance. The council sat in high thrones, their faces unreadable. The diplomats from before stood nearby, hands folded. Watching, the high priest began the chant. The same words as before. But this time Dylan listened, and understood it was not a blessing, it was a command. A binding meant to lock their wills to the council's design. As the chant rose, Dylan stepped forward. Stop. Silence crashed down. The priest frowned. The ritual must be completed, not like this, Dylan said, not as prisoners. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide. Not with fear this time, with something like pride. The lead counselor stood, his voice smooth as glass. You overstep, human. You are a guest. Not a ruler. I am the groom, Dylan said. And she is not a prize to be given. She is Lyra Vane, and I stand with her not because the universe chose us, but because we choose each other. Gasps. Whispers. The counselor's face darkened. Then you choose death. He raised a hand, but before he could speak, Orcs roared. The sound tore through the ship. Lights shattered. The floor cracked. From below the chamber, the dragon surged upward, breaking through layers of deck and stone. Chains snapped like thread. Its wings, vast and shimmering, unfurled for the first time in centuries. The council fled. The crowd scattered. Oryx landed between Dylan and Lyra, its body a living shield. Its star-filled eyes blazed with ancient fury. The counselor stood frozen. You cannot control what you do not understand, he whispered. No, Dylan said, stepping forward, but we can set it free. And in that moment, far beyond the ship, at the edge of the system, a new light appeared. Not a star, not a comet, a human fleet, small but fierce, led by the old freighter Dylan had left behind. They had come, and the silent war was over. Now the real one began. The sky above the elven homeworld tore open like paper, not with fire or fury, but with silence, a silence so deep it swallowed sound. Then the human fleet appeared. Not grand warships with gleaming hulls, but patched-together vessels salvaged from 100 dead systems, cargo haulers retrofitted with railguns, mining drones armed with plasma cutters, medical frigates broadcasting open frequencies on every channel. They hung at the edge of the system like a question no one had asked in 10,000 years. Down on the surface, the ceremony grounds trembled. Oryx stood tall, its wings spread wide enough to cast a shadow over the entire plaza. Its scales shimmered with colors that bent light and time. The council guards raised their weapons, but their hands shook. No one had seen a void dragon free in living memory. Legend said they could swallow stars. No one wanted to test that. Dylan stood beside Lyra. His red ceremonial robes were torn at the shoulder. His breath came fast but steady. He looked up at the sky, not with fear, but with something like relief. They came. Lyra watched the human ships. Her silver eyes reflected their running lights. She had read about humanity in forbidden archives. Species that built with their hands, not their minds. That healed with touch, not thought. That cried when they laughed. She never believed they would come for one man. Yet here they were. The lead counselor stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice held. You think this changes anything, human? Your fleet is dust against our armada. Maybe, Dylan said, but dust gets in your eyes, and your engines, and your plans. Before the counselor could reply, a voice boomed from the sky. Not through comms. Through the air itself, amplified by Orcs. This is Captain Nora Bell of the Earth vessel Wayfarer. We are not here to fight. We are here to retrieve one of our own, and any who wish to leave with him. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Slaves, workers, lower caste elves, their eyes lifted to the sky. Hope flickered in places long dark. The counselor turned to his guards. Shoot the dragon now. Energy bolts streaked toward Oryx. They struck its hide and vanished like rain on hot stone. Oryx did not flinch. It opened its mouth and exhaled. Not fire. Sound. A single note so deep it vibrated through bone and metal. The council thrones, carved from solid crystal, shattered into dust. The guards dropped their weapons, clutching their ears. The very air rippled with force. Dylan took Lyra's hand. Not for ceremony. For courage. Let's go. They ran toward the edge of the plaza where the rescue pods began to fall. Small silver eggs launched from the human ships. They hit the ground and unfolded into shelters, medical bays, and transport lifts. Humans in patched uniforms stepped out, offering hands, not weapons. Come on, they said in simple words. You're safe now. Lyra stopped, looked back at the ruins of the ceremony, at the broken thrones, at the counselor kneeling in the dust. Is this what you wanted? She asked Dylan. No, he said. I just wanted to go home. But if this is the price, then yes, she nodded. Then turned to Oryx. You are free now. You do not have to follow. Oryx lowered its head until its star-filled eyes met hers. I swore an oath to your bloodline, but I see now the oath was never to you. It was to the truth you carry, and that truth walks with him. Dylan blinked. You carry earth in your bones, little spark. and Earth does not bow. Above them, the Elven armada arrived, hundreds of ships sleek and silent as knives. They formed a wall between the planet and the human fleet. Weapons charged. Targeting locks flared. Captain Bell's voice came again, calm but firm. "We are not armed for war, but we will not leave without our people. If you fire, we broadcast everything. The slavery, the lies, the broken treaties. The galaxy will know." The Elven command ship hesitated. Then a new voice cut through. Older. Weary. "Stand down." An ancient vessel drifted forward, its hull scarred with age. From its bridge, an elder elf spoke, one who remembered the first wars. "Let them go. This is not a battle we can win with weapons." The armada parted. On the ground, Dylan helped a young elf girl into a pod. She clutched a small doll made of wire and cloth. Her eyes were wide but dry. "Brave." "Thank you," she whispered in broken standard. He nodded. "You're welcome." Lyra watched him, saw the way he treated everyone the same. No titles, no ranks, just people. "You really are different," she said. "We try." The last pod lifted off. Orcs coiled around it like a living shield as it rose. Dylan and Lyra stood on the ramp watching the planet shrink below. The city of spires and silence grew smaller, until it was just another dot in the dark. On the bridge of the Wayfarer, Captain Nora Bell waited. She was tall with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many losses. She wore a patched uniform with Earth's flag stitched on the shoulder. "Dylan Cruz," she said. "You look like hell." He smiled. "Felt like it too." She turned to Lyra. "And you must be the reason half the galaxy is in panic." Lyra bowed slightly. "I'm Lyra Vane." Nora nodded. "Welcome aboard. We got a lot of scared folks down there. They keep asking if Earth is real." "It is," Dylan said. "Messy, loud, and full of holes. But real. Good enough." As the fleet turned toward the outer rim, Oryx circled above them, its wings catching the light of dying stars. The Elven armada did not follow. They watched and waited. Back on the planet, the council burned, not with fire but with shame. Their perfect order cracked. Their secrets exposed. The silent war was over. The age of control had ended, not with a bang, but with a mechanic who walked through the wrong door. And a dragon who remembered how to fly. On the Wayfarer, Dylan stood at the viewport. Lyra joined him. "What now?" she asked. "Now we find a quiet place. Build something new. With Oryx if he wants to come." Oryx landed on the hull with a soft thud. His voice echoed in their minds. "Where you go, I go. The old world is done. The new one needs guardians." Dylan looked at Lyra. She looked back. No fear, no panic. Just peace. They had not planned this. Not really. But sometimes the best things are unplanned. Like falling through a hole in space. Like meeting a dragon. Like finding someone who sees you not as a symbol, but as a person. The fleet jumped to warp. Stars stretched into lines. Behind them, the elven homeworld faded into myth. Ahead lay the unknown. And for the first time in a long time, Dylan Cruz was not afraid. Because he was not alone. And somewhere in the dark, Oryx purred. Content. Finally, free, the galaxy would talk about this day for centuries. Not as a battle, but as a turning point. The day humanity showed up not to conquer, but to care. And that changed everything. The asteroid belt known as the Whispering Veil hung far beyond the edge of mapped space. It was a graveyard of dead rocks and forgotten ships. A place no one visited unless they were lost or hiding. Perfect for two people who wanted neither fame nor war, and one dragon who wanted only peace. Dylan Cruz stood on the surface of a modest asteroid no bigger than a city block. His boots crunched on frozen dust. The air came from a small recycler strapped to his back. Above him, Oryx circled slow and silent wings, catching the light of a distant red sun. The dragon no longer wore chains. His scales shimmered with quiet power, and his star-filled eyes watched the void like an old friend. Inside the asteroid, Lyra Vane worked. She had carved a home from the rock using tools borrowed from the Wayfarer. And songs older than language. Walls glowed with embedded crystals. Vines from elven seeds climbed the ceilings. A small garden grew under artificial suns. Earth tomatoes beside silver-leafed elven herbs. It was not grand, but it was theirs. 3 months had passed since the ceremony, since the fleet. Since the fall of the old order, news still trickled in through coded signals. The elven hegemony had fractured. Some worlds broke away. Others formed new councils. Slavery ended not by decree but by example. Humans opened trade routes not with treaties but with shared meals and open docks. The galaxy was changing, slowly, messily, beautifully. Dylan climbed down the access ladder into the main chamber. Lyra looked up from her workbench. Her silver hair was tied back, her hands stained with oil and soil. She smiled. A real smile, not the careful one she used in courts. Oryx landed outside the entrance, his bulk blocking the light. The ground trembled softly. "He says you were late," she said. Dylan shrugged. "Had to fix the water recycler again. Space dust clogs everything. You could ask him to blow it clean and risk turning our water into stardust, no thanks." They both laughed. It was a sound still new to them. Easy, unguarded. Lyra set down her tools. Today is the day. Dylan knew what she meant. The day they would decide. Not by ritual. Not by prophecy. But by choice. He nodded. Okay. They walked outside together. Oryx lowered his head so they could climb onto his back. The dragon rose into the void, not fast but steady. They flew past jagged rocks and silent wrecks until they reached a clearing in the belt, a wide space, where two small suns cast long shadows. "Here," Oryx said in Dylan's mind. They stepped onto a flat stone warmed by the twin suns. No altar, no crowd, no priests, just them, and the endless dark. Lyra turned to Dylan. Her silver eyes held no fear, only clarity. The first ceremony was forced. The second was rebellion. This one is ours. If you stay, it is because you want to. Not because the universe chose you. Not because of duty. Just because. Dylan looked at her. Really looked. He saw the woman who ran from him in terror, who guarded a dragon in silence, who stood against an empire with nothing but truth. And he saw the woman who planted tomatoes in alien soil, who laughed at his bad jokes, who shared her last piece of bread without a word. "I stay," he said. "Not as a groom by accident, not as a symbol, but as your partner. Because I choose you. Every day." Lyra reached into her pocket and pulled out 2 rings, not gold or silver, but iron forged from a piece of Dylan's old salvage ship and a shard of her ceremonial dagger. She handed him one. "This is not magic. It will not bind us. It will only remind us." He took it, slipped it on. It fit. She put on hers, then took his hand. No vows were spoken. None were needed. The silence between them said everything. Oryx watched from a distance. His tail curled around a nearby asteroid like a cat settling in. His eyes glowed softly. "You have done well." "Little spark," he said. "We did." Dylan thought back. Yes. Together. Far away on 100 worlds, stories spread. Of the human who walked through a door and changed fate. Of the elven woman who chose love over legacy. Of the dragon who remembered how to hope. Children on Mars drew pictures of Oryx with wings made of stars. Scholars on New Earth debated the meaning of the binding. Rebels on fringe worlds used Dylan's name as a password, but none of them knew the truth. The truth was simple. 2 people, 1 dragon, and a choice made in quiet light. Back on the asteroid, Dylan and Lyra walked home hand in hand. Oryx followed behind his steps, silent on the stone. Inside, the garden needed watering. Dinner needed cooking. A broken comms unit sat on the bench waiting for repair. Ordinary things. But after everything they had been through, ordinary felt like a miracle. That night, they sat on the roof of their home watching the stars. Oryx lay nearby, his breath a soft rumble in the dark. "You ever miss it?" Lyra asked. "Earth sometimes. But home isn't a place. It's who you are with." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Me neither." They sat in silence. The twin suns dipped below the horizon. The first stars appeared. Somewhere out there, the galaxy kept turning. Wars still happened. Lies still spread. But now there was also something new. Something stubborn. Hope. Not the kind shouted from thrones, but the kind grown in gardens, shared in silence, chosen every day. Dylan looked at Lyra, at Oryx, at the quiet life they built from nothing. He wasn't a hero. She wasn't a queen. The dragon wasn't a weapon. They were just themselves. And that was enough. In the distance, a human freighter passed by, its lights blinking a simple pattern. "Hello?" "Safe travels. We remember." Oryx lifted his head, answered with a low hum that traveled through space like a lullaby. The freighter blinked back. "Thank you." Then it vanished into the dark. Dylan smiled. "Let's go inside," he said. "It's getting cold." Lyra stood, took his hand. Okay. And as they walked back into their home, the dragon curled around it like a promise. Content. Finally. After 10,000 years, home,